Hey guys, welcome back to the workshop again this week. We are continuing our build on the Howard Hill style bamboo bamboo belly bow. This is it, and you can see as it stands right now, we have absolutely zero string follow rather in this bow. Started with about 1.5 inches of set back to get to this point, but it shoots really well. Been doing some work getting it to full tiller. It is just under 50 pounds at 28 inches before we shoot it in, which is the stage I'm at right now. The crazy thing about this bow, and if you've been following the build along, you know that we attempted to use some very old cedar that was 20 plus years old from a cedar fence rail within my yard, and ruptured a handle on the first build. And guys, we ruptured the handle on this one too. Crazy repair job to get this bow to what you see right now and shooting flawlessly. Follow along, I'll show you how I did it. This bow has been allowed to sit at rest now for several days. You kind of see, then once allowed to relax completely, we still have some setback left in these limbs. There's something I'm noticing with this build that I don't think would have been the case if I were to use a hardwood, but bamboo is going to take on its own kind of shape based upon like where the nodes are. You know, they're going to divot a little bit at the nodes in order to keep the thickness in line as you're thinning down your bamboo. And some of the set that I'm taking right here, I think actually is more along the lines of the cedar core, just kind of following the shape of the back of the backing strip. It kind of does this number, and it's right on a node. And the trick is where it feels like there's some set occurring right out of the fade, it really isn't. It actually has some reflex right here and then kind of bumps like it's a knot right on that node. So something that I've been tracking as we go along. Anyhow, we're gonna get this guy, he's like 9/10 tillered. Gonna go ahead and get it tillered out to full draw at this point. We were, I want to say, just a little over 50 pounds at 26 or 27 inches. Gonna pull her all the way out, get this handle fashioned out, and ready to roll. And we're gonna start putting some arrows through it. So. Since we are not completely done with this bow, it's important that we keep this straight, flat surface on our grip until we're done tillering. That way we can set it on our tillering tree and get a good view of what's going on with the limbs. I don't know, this is just disappointing as heck. You know, enough to make me want to just move on to a different bow build instead of continuing to beat my brain against this this design, which is arguably one of the simplest designs out there. So we may make our hill style bow and just do some different materials altogether. I think that's kind of where I'm at with this. The cedar is just not the optimal material, because the cedar is what's just blowing apart right here. So I'm thinking that it's just not got the strength to hold up. This is going to be probably one of the craziest reclamation projects that I have ever taken on. Yeah, it probably shouldn't come apart that easy. back to ground zero here. I guess just slightly above zero. But I have kind of ground down the belly lamb from the back and the belly here, just to where there's only a whisper of the cedar, kind of cedar and or epoxy that's just showing right here on the surfaces. So here's my belly piece, and you can kind of see the riser start and end right there. Didn't want to get all the way down to the bamboo for fear of having an effect on the tiller that we had put on those pieces originally. Now, of course, the belly pieces have been tillered on the actual belly here, so we've got a new taper on these guys. But if we're able to match within reason the taper that we had on the core previous to now, with the next one, we should almost like start at tiller with very minimal adjustments needing to be made. So this is going to be a very meticulous glue up. Going to have to really rely on the working time that I get out of EA40 epoxy to get everything lined up just exactly right. So here's what I've done. You can kind of see where the center lamb sticks out a little bit from the limbs on either side, right? So the bamboo was cut wider than the rest of the limbs, and that was, you know, and that's, you don't cross your lines when you're trying to do exact work. But what I have done is gone into two sections, one at one end, one tip, and then at the other tip. And I did grind down that center lamb to be dead on even with the front and, or with the back and belly layers. And then I did it again right out of the fades. So you can kind of see where it's ground down right here, so it matches exactly the width of the limb. And that is so I can ensure that the back and the belly limbs match exactly. I mean, they have to match like precisely, or it's going to change the dynamic of this bow entirely. While I unpackage this guy, try and go over some of the things that I tried to accomplish with this repair. First of all, I moved away from the cedar Core-Lam. It just, I think when it came time to standing up to the forces of the bamboo, it literally just did not have the resistance internally to deal with the stresses, like literally ruptured the cedar right in the middle of it, you know, as the compression and tension forces of the two bamboo lambs just tore it apart. I think that's really what I'm dealing with here. So, you know, when that happened, of course, the bow was tillered. It was tillered all the way to 28 inches, which was disturbing enough on its own that we had gotten that far and then it decided to blow. So that's, you know, I don't know. I don't know that I can necessarily justify or really explain outside of the notion that the cedar just was not up to the requirement here. Like, it just was not going to hold up over the long haul, thick or thin. I imagine if I had made it quite a bit thinner, it probably would have stood a better chance, but you know, I'm not going to do another experiment along those lines. I'm abandoning the cedar and went with the bamboo core here. Now, that having been said, since this bow was basically tillered all the way out to 28 inches, you know, I needed to take that into account when I'm doing the new lamb. The new lamb is, in fact, just a little bit thinner than the previous one. It is just under 1/4 inches thick at the grip. All right, so a little bit thinner even yet than the cedar was. And again, since the tiller was already in place, I've already done work on the belly lamb, the back is what it is. I needed to ensure that I could at least try to match the tiller that was there prior to the break. And so I made the Core-Lam the exact same taper that I had made the cedar. I had not changed up my tools in any way between the last glue up and this one. So I have essentially remade the same bow in between the two lambs, one of which has already been modified, that being the belly, to accomplish the tiller that we were at prior to the break. And that's, you know, that is to help ensure that the tillering job that I've done up to this point might actually carry over into this finished bow, which, if everything were to play out perfectly, and that is expecting an awful lot, but if everything were to play out perfectly, this bow should already be tillered to 28 inches. Poundage to be the question mark, and you know, that's the intent. Now, that's assuming a lot of things, like we got the limbs lined up just right, and from what I'm seeing on this one, and then on this one, we did. I think we accomplished that. So far, so good. And truth be told, it just feels like freaking deja vu, right? So, attempt number 3, for goodness sake. But cleaned up very well here from end to end, and I got perfect alignment, near as I can tell, on my back slat and my front slat. So we should be in alignment without too much trouble, and not having to do major undertaking with regard to the shape of the limbs because they matched up. One issue that I have come across, and I'm not entirely sure exactly why, you'll see here that my string grooves on my upper limb matched perfectly, which was the plan. However, the string grooves on my lower end, they're like offset by, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch or so, which I'm trying to understand how that would happen, other than maybe the backing strip stretching over the course of the tillering process and the belly strip shrinking over the course of the tillering process, which would make sense, compression and tension. So we'll see how that plays out in the resulting bow here, because it's almost like the backing is pre-stretched and the belly is pre-shrunk. I don't know. We'll kind of see how this plays out, but that is kind of odd. And I'm sitting here trying to think like which string groove I'm going to follow. Obviously it'll be the lower one because I need it to seat properly onto the belly side of the bow. But everything is cleaned up and ready to just start tillering. I went over the handle just lightly to get all of the residue cleaned up. Did manage to get most all of the epoxy off the belly. You can kind of see a little bit of shimmering going on there for where it's just very lightly applied, but sanding will take care of that. And of course the back, I still even have to get the rind off of it, so no big deal there. The edges, they all look about like this. They're all perfectly clean. So I'm going to get the string grooves cut in. I'm going to get a long string on this guy and see how we start out here. All right, here's the initial bends with a long tillering string. I don't like to make judgments on tiller too much with a long string, but it appears to me that the upper limb right here is bending more than the lower limb. Now that might just be a function of exercise or whatever the case may be. However, it is immediately pulled to what would qualify as a brace height. And so before I get going with any kind of adjustments or tillering from here, since I got good bend on both limbs, I'm going to go ahead and string it up and see what we get after it's strung on a short string. So this is why I tend not to tiller on a long string. So I am 1/8 positive tiller on my upper limb right here, strung to probably 5 inches at best, but a good string height and showing good bend in those limbs. Maybe a little bit stiff here on the inner third of my upper limb, so I may do a little bit of work on that, but definitely looks good in a strung condition versus on a long string. So I am going to, guys, I'm just going to work this thing out. We've been through the tillering process on this bow a couple of times. It does not need to be repeated over and over. I'm going to get this guy to end stages and then bring us back to where we were before the rupture. All right, guys, well, it would seem my suspicion was true. The cedar as a center lamb, or as a Core-Lam, just could not stand up to the stresses. Like the actual strength of it just couldn't hack it. This one, as I mentioned before, has the bamboo in there, and we are done. This guy is tillered out to 28 inches right now, pulling just under 50 pounds. So considering everything I went through to try and salvage this guy, I'm pretty happy with the weight. It came pretty much right to tiller. Took very minimal adjustments to go, so the original, or the new Core-Lam, was basically on par with the original in terms of shape, you know, so we got the right tiller. This is after being pulled to 28 inches repeatedly. I've been shooting it in at this point, so getting ready to do the tweaking and peaking piece of the process here. Got the grip I put together there. Feels really pretty good, and we'll build up an arrow rest here with leather shortly, or in the as we move forward with the build here. A little bit of, like I said, tweaking yet to go. The finished set on this guy was basically nil. Like, there is no string follow whatsoever. So it took about an inch or an inch and a half a set, because that's the set back that there was to start with. And you know, looks really pretty good in terms of tiller. Got a pretty high brace on that guy, but came out good. It's got about a 1/4 inch positive tiller on the upper limb and shoots really quietly. I would say it shoots really smooth, but I would be exaggerating the truth. So I got a lot of work to do to take some mass out of the tips here, and that's really about where we stand. So I guess, you know, the third attempt is, third try is the winner, third time's a charm, right? But yeah, I'm really pleased, and actually a little bit I don't know that I want to say surprised with myself, or just really almost giddy with the fact that I was able to take this bow from being broken and completely salvage it with a new Core-Lam and have it turn out as well as it has. So guys, thank you for hanging in with me this week. It's been, man, this has been a slog. This build is really I don't know, it's becoming a taxing build, but we will have this guy wrapped up, peaked and tweaked, and even get some film of it shooting here with the next episode. So guys, we'll see you next week.